Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup though. rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though.
Hello folks, welcome back to TOTL. It's a little bit of a different one this week. We have low numbers and it is raining. I was just checking that the audio was working there, sorry. And I'm burping up paella. Anyway, yes, like I say, raining here at Silverstone quite heavily. Everybody out on track currently on the wet tyres. I don't know whether anybody's going to take the gamble to go to the intermediates at any point and see whether they're going to be quicker. But for the time being, we're all out. Well, we've got people out on track. We only have 12 drivers this evening. It seems that a little bit of a busy night for most folk. And there we have our first lap time on the board. Apologies for the little bit of a delay on getting into the session. Had a few technical difficulties and I had to grab some scran. The race is apparently also wet here for the Silverstone Grand Prix. Afro, my boy. My close friend. My day one compatriot. Do you have any secret sauce in the wet conditions that you've been saving for us? Obviously, haven't really been one of the quicker drivers in the dry conditions, but we're looking to see whether he can maybe pull something out of the hat here in the wet conditions. That would be lovely. Should have more than enough temperature in his tyres here, but there is a Mercedes streaming on by. That should be Zenik on his hot lap here. We currently have Ryan Crowhurst top of the timing screens with a 140.603. But now Zenik looking to try and improve upon that time. He's already at 135, so I don't necessarily think this is going to be a massive improvement on a 140, if a 140 improvement at all. In fact, it's a 140.3. So slowest of the times that have been set so far, but Joshua Johnson slots in P2 as well with a 141 dead. We'll see whether any of our more usual suspects like Jay Rasta have got anything to say. Nope, that's an invalid lap for Rasta. What about Khan? Championship leader, obviously had an absolute disaster last time out in Austria. We'll see whether that's going to be the case here again in Silverstone. Obviously, in order to get a good race, he's going to need to have a good qualifying. That was a very bit nip and tuck last time out too. But so far, here for Khan, purple sector 2. Track evolving, by the way, with these wet tyres on. Looks like it's getting better and better out there and more grip will likely be found, but Khan still trying to navigate through this final sector without spinning the car around or doing anything too crazy. Looks to be relatively clean so far. And as he crosses the line, he's into the 39s. A 1.6 second advantage on Ryan Crowhurst. Bilal Khan, once again, lays down the gauntlet, lays down the marker. And if some of these guys don't get their act together, we might be seeing this as a bit of a danger moving forward. Can't be a purple sector 1 from Khan. Is he going again? A second flying lap? Surely not. I mean, there's no reason not to be fair. You might as well keep driving the track here in the wet conditions rather than going back into the pit lane. I have done that in my time in TOTL as a reasonable strategy. I did that in Monaco, actually, one season, I think last season, season 6, where we had full qualifying the whole time. In Monaco, I drove on the intermediates the entire time for basically the entire session and just let the lap time come to me. Had one lap off to recharge the battery, and then 2 laps on, because in the intermediate or wet conditions, you don't tend to use as much of the battery as you would in the dry, so you can afford to do it. And the tyres, they feel okay, really, in the wet conditions. You don't have to wait to get the fresh wets on or anything like that. So in this instance, maybe that is the case for Khan, but through Sector 2, I didn't really notice anything particularly pushing on, and it looks like he is going into the pit lane anyway. I definitely think it could be fruitful for a number of the drivers here to just stay out and just get familiar with the conditions. We'll see whether anybody is adopting that. Miller through Sector 1 is 0.06 of a second up on his previous best time. But through Sector 2 is where all the time is to be made, really, on these wet tyres, because you have a lot of corners, a lot of faster corners too. So it's a question of how willing you are to take those with some pace. Miller tried to take them with some pace, but ended up invalidating on the exit of Copse. Unlucky for him. What about Jono? Jono, always been a quick driver. Sometimes struggled a little bit with the wet conditions historically. Always strategy has been kind of Johnny's shortcoming on that aspect, but not on a lap here, it would seem. Just chuntering away as he rounds into Stowe. Looking to try and get things sorted and narrowed out into the Vale chicane. Here we go then. Starting a lap on board with Johnny through, I think it's Abbey. Is that the first corner? I don't really know. Into Village. And I think it's Farm, isn't it? Farm, then Village. Then the Wellington Straits, which I think we're starting to round ourselves onto now. Out of that farm complex. Sorry, that village complex. Just getting our way on down the Wellington Strait now into Brooklands. I'm doing this from memory, so if it's impressive, let me know. 0.6 of a second up on his previous best time. It's going to be a huge improvement here for Jono Nicholson. Going now into Luffield, and then we'll be looking to try and ping it right again for the flat right. Maybe not quite so flat in the wet conditions, but it should be better. Of Woodcut. Bit more of a corner on bikes than it is in cars as we head down the National Straight. The National pit straight into Copse, and then into the legendary sequence of corners of Maggots, Beckett, and Chapel. See whether Jono has anything really cooking here on this lap from the onboard. Definitely looks tentative in these wet conditions, dropping even down into 4th gear to make sure the car gets rotated in. But he's 0.7 of a second up on his previous best time. This is going to be good enough to try and slot him in maybe P3 at the moment, just ahead of Ryan Crowhurst. I don't think it's going to be good enough unless he finds time in this final sector to get on song with Zenik at this moment in time. But now into the Vale chicane. Negotiates that well. Oh, a little bit of a slide on the exit as we now go through Club, the final corner, onto the Hamilton Straight. And it is going to be a 40.4, so 3rd place. Exactly where I thought he was going to be for Jono. Respectable lap so far, but still Khan sits massively ahead of the rest of the field. Always has been a very strong driver in the wet conditions. Quick shout out to Meikle as well, running on 2 hours sleep. Nearly 0.2 up through the first sector, already in 5th place here. Meikle's always been one to look out for in wet conditions, an extremely consistent driver. And as such, you get extremely consistent results from him in the wet, often towards the sharp end because he's not making so many of those mistakes. A very, very calm and collected, calculated, cool driver to be around a lot of the time. Meikle actually going to be coming up on some traffic here, which I think is EOJ in the Alpine. You'll want to be trying to get by him. That's a purple sector 2 from Meikle. This lap time, 0.6 of a second up, is going to send him into P3 if he's not careful. If there's more time to be found in the track here for Meeks, maybe this is going to be an interesting lap for him. Will he fall in love with the wet conditions here, or will Mr. Valentine be looking for a new best love as he gets a little bit held up there, I think, by EOJ as he comes into Club. But across the line, it is going to be a 3rd place start there for Meikle. 0.5 of a second. I think lost a little bit through Vale and the final sequence of corners there with EOJ in his way, but backs off for this lap, and that's a really respectable time there from Meikle. Definitely safe to say that he is a bit of a wet weather guy. EOJ, anyway, looking at him, 0.3 of a second up through the first sector. Lots of time being found in the wet here as he comes through Village onto the Wellington Straight. Going to try and straight line the car now, try and get as much power down as he can. Obviously, traction is difficult to find in these severely wet conditions. So into Brooklands, now looking to the right-hander of Luffield. Very long radius in the wet. Your car will understeer all the time as well. He now tries to get the power down on the exit, straightens it out, but again, a bit of a snap as he enters into Woodcut. Now down the National pit straight into Copse. Copse is obviously a very difficult corner to get right in the wet conditions. How much do you want to risk? 7th gear to try and keep the traction up Probably not the best in terms of acceleration out of that corner, but still does enough as he now slams it into Maggots. Now Beckett's on the left-hand side, flipping back to the right. It's a decent sequence, a little bit wide of the final apex at Beckett's as he runs through Chapel. Very wide on the exit, and over a second off his previous best time, was miles wide of the apex at Luffield, and you can't help but think that might be where he's lost some of that lap time. He now rounds Stowe. Maybe there is some final sector speed to be gained here. Looks like he's just going to dive straight back into the pit lane, though. What has Khan got to offer? Actually, what has Ryan Crowhurst got to offer? 0.3 of a second up. Comes second, one last time out in Austria. Came second the race before that, and a second the race before that as well in Azerbaijan. What has Ryan Crowhurst cooked up for us here, as he will be attempting the 24 hours of Le Mans with me tomorrow? It's a great second sector from Ryan, 0.6 of a second up. This will put him into the 39s, but it won't put him close to Khan's lap time of a 39.0. Still lots of ground to be made up here in the wet conditions. It's all really about these guys finding their feet, finding some real confidence in the wet. And at the moment, it doesn't look like many of them have got it, apart from Khan, who's probably got more time in this game than the whole lot of them. A big squirrely moment coming out of the Vale chicane, but through Club, Ryan will drop into the 39s with a 39.7. Very, very strong lap time from one of your championship protagonists, and your last race winner is Bilal Khan here, 0.2 of a second up on what is already a lap that has put the entire field to shame. 39.0 soon to be improved into the 38s, it would seem, if he can get the Vale chicane and Club neatly tidied up as he now makes his way round the final corner. Just make sure not to get the car too squirrely on the exit. Lots of grip to be found, and there it is, 38.9. Moves the goalposts even further away from the field, pursuing him behind. That is a mercurial lap from your championship leader, and really laying down as to why he is in that position here. Nicol looks like he's going again here, as he is 0.1 of a second up through the second sector, but through the final corner. Is he going to have any more time to gain in that final sector? Yes, he is. There's the time that he lost behind EOJ last time around. That's a 40.1 essentially there. Nicol, I think, has a bit more time to make up, though, through the first and second sectors. Now, is it still raining heavily? Yeah, it looks like it is. We'll see if Zenik has anything to add to the party here as he finally comes across the line to start a non-invalidated lap, but it seems that his lap is still invalid, so we'll guess he's not on a lap here. One person who will be about to start a lap is Johnny Nicholson. In the 8 hours of Misano that we did on Assetto Corsa Competizione, man was a demon in the wet conditions, but can he transfer that skill across to the F1 23 title here? We'll soon find out. Gets the car turned into into Farm, and gets it a bit squirrely on the exit of Farm. Now looking to try and make it all work through the village sequence. It's been okay, I guess, but that looked like a seriously scrappy first sector. I dare say that Nicholson will have lost some time here. Yeah, nearly 0.3 of a second. Into Brooklands, though, the low gears, trying to get the rotation into the car. Just needs to be extremely careful with the application of that throttle. You hear him dabbing on it there through Luffield, and now Woodcut got it a bit squirrely on the exit of Luffield. Is there still time to be gained here for Nicholson, or is he going to find himself just a bit down on his time previously? We'll see. Cuts through into Copse. That looked pretty quick through Copse. 6th gear as well through there, just to try and get the acceleration. Definitely looks like it could be a decent sector 2 here. Maggots looks good. Beckett's is tight. Is he going to be tight on the right-hand side? Yes, he is. That's really tidy from Jono Nicholson. And now as he exits Chapel, looks like he's managed to recoup some of that lost time, but just not quite enough to improve his overall lap time yet. Just 0.03 of a second, 0.04 of a second nearly behind as he comes into Stowe. Probably could have done with 5th gear the whole way through there, but he dropped to 4th anyway for the extra rotation. Now into Vale, braking deep and into a wall for Jono Nicholson. Not interested in continuing that lap by the looks of things, as he's retired from the session. Well, there is no more time left in the session, so if Jono wasn't going to be improving, no more reason to try and stick with it. Miller suspectly hops into 2nd place there. with a 39.3, completely under the radar, but Khan looks like he's pushing here to try and push the boat out even further. 1/100th of a second down on his previous best time, so if he is going to improve, it's going to be incremental at best, but it seems to me there's nobody out on track at the moment who's going to be in a position to try and challenge this man who is nearly, half a second ahead of the field here in these wet conditions at Silverstone. If the race is also wet, it's going to be an absolute cleanup here for Bilal Khan. He's been mercurial this season so far, apart from the mistake last time out in Austria, and he does find 2.5 tenths of a second in that final sector. Now that's going to put him even further away from the rest of the field. Meikle really going to be the last person to have a challenge. Unfortunately for Meeks, he has invalidated his final run here in quali, and that will be that. It will be Khan from Miller, from Ryan Crowe to EOJ, Meikle, Zenik, Joshua Johnston, Jay Rasta, Fazer, Jono, Burnsy, and Afro. So, 12 drivers, all sorted out for qualifying. We'll see what the race holds for us here, but those wet conditions have provided some parity in terms of qualifying pace. You can see that Khan is some way away from the rest of the field here. If the race is going to be fully wet throughout, it might be hard to catch the man in the McLaren. It's going to be a tough ask, but have they got it up to the challenge? We'll see after this quick break. Okay, folks, it's race time here in TOTL at Britain, and we're off already. The conditions don't look wet off the start. It looks like people here on dry tyres, so we may have a bit of a chance as Bilal Khan, of course, immediately leaps into the lead. A horrible start for Ryan Crowhurst as Meikle and EOJ running side by side into the farm section, but Meikle's got it done into Village, but will EOJ have a look back up the inside, the cutback immediately looking like an option here, but Meikle got it sorted, got it done off the line. Plenty of traction ahead of these guys. Medium tyre runners, we have 3. Fazer, Burnsy, Joshua Johnston, already EOJ getting his elbows out on the outside of Meikle though. Meikle inside for Luffield. They're going to have a difficult run to the Copse corner as Meikle gives another glancing blow to EOJ to push him back out to the other side of the track. Meikle now firmly ahead of EOJ, but Ryan Crowhurst threatening in the rear view. Very close behind, backs out of the move as they go into Copse. Keeps it a little bit wide of the track limits there. Round into Maggots and Beckett's. These two going side by side still. Meanwhile, the two at the front absolutely clearing off, and Meikle's round. Meikle's gone. Unfortunately, he's been tagged by EOJ as they come through Maggots, Beckett's. And that is an unfortunate result of close racing in the opening lap. A little bit of room could have been left there. It would have been great, but unfortunately not to be. Khan already over a second clear. Miller also 2 seconds nearly his margin over the rest of the field behind. So these two in a race of their own. Miller desperately going to be trying to get back in within the DRS of Bilal Khan up in front, but I don't think it's going to be too possible. Bilal Khan already exhibiting that he has far more pace than the rest of the field here today. Miller, as he used any battery to get back in touch, already looks like he's got a little bit of pace through the first sector, maybe higher downforce on the car here. Khan has used more battery than Miller through this first lap, but not by much, as Miller now looks to try and get back in touch with that DRS of the car ahead. He doesn't want that race leader to leap away. Anyway, there are your strategy options. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case here, though. I think we could definitely see some soft tyres towards the end of the race here, as these two flirting with the limits of each other with the battery usage. Miller firmly with inside DRS now. A little bit of a dab as he comes out of Woodcut in towards Copse, just to maintain that speed as he comes down the national pit straight. Plenty of gap he's got behind, but he's more concerned about that gap in front. Does not want Khan to run away with this one. Of course, DRS will be activated at the end of lap 2. So as long as Miller stays within touch, he will have DRS as he comes down the Wellington Straight. So that'll be nice for him to stay in touch with the race leader for the time being. Khan made a getaway, but Miller is making a quick break here to try and get to the back of him here through the second lap. It looks very tidy through through Stowe into Vale, and then will be coming around the club corner at the final corner. He's 0.5 of a second back, already looking very good in the dry conditions here. Have we got the spring sprint Miller back here? Looks like he's on song with Khan through this sector so far, and will of course have that DRS back to hunt on down your championship leader out ahead. He's very close already, even without the DRS. This is looking very potent here for Peter Miller. Has he got something in hand in the dry conditions? Khan says there's going to be wet weather appearing towards the end of the race, but hey, that might not be the case. The game could have got it a little bit wrong, as now Miller coming very close to the back of Bilal Khan. Meanwhile, Ryan Crowhurst has got it done in towards Brooklands on EOJ and now can set his sights on the two ahead. He definitely, I think, should have more pace than the guys behind, but whether he's going to have more pace than the guys in front is a different story. He needs to claim that gap back on down and try and break away from EOJ and the pursuing pack. Zenik, currently on the back of Joshua Johnston, was considering a move in towards Copse there, but thought better of it as they came into the fast right-hander. We've seen plenty of accidents there over the years. One springs to mind almost immediately from real-life F1. Miller, I think, got Chappell and the exit of Beckett's a little bit wrong there and has lost some time to Bilal Khan through that sector, but is now hounding the back of him again with DRS into Stowe. Afro making moves on Burnsy. Unless Burnsy's made a mistake, I think that is more to the point. But Afro, with the DRS open, is going to start trying to close in on Phaser and Co. ahead. So far, looking tidy, though, for the man from Leeds. As Miller still firmly hot on the heels of Bilal Khan. Fastest third sector there for Miller, as you saw it flash up on the mini-map. That is going to be looking very, very good if Miller can try and disrupt the rhythm of Khan up ahead. He's going to have DRS, and he is definitely close enough this time around. He hasn't even really been using too much of the battery, as you can see there. 86% for Miller as he exits Village, and he's going to be pulling alongside of Khan here in towards Brooklands. That is a move up the inside. He got it done on the DRS and then makes it stick through the braking zone. Khan going very, very wide through Luffield, but trying to square the corner off for a run on Miller down the old pit straight in towards Copse. Khan going to be trying to run this one very close on the exit, but no slipstream given. Just going to try and stay behind for the moment through Maggots Beckett's. Of course, Miller made a mistake here last time. Khan is closing rapidly. He has to get out of the throttle a little bit in order to make sure that he doesn't get into any trouble. 3-second penalty for EOJ. And now in behind, Khan looking very tight on the exit of Chappell. And obviously with DRS here and the battery being used, he's going to soar back past Peter Miller as these two continue their feud into this race. Into Stowe now they go. No immediate rebuttal to be offered here from Peter Miller, but won't really have a look into into Vale either. Just keeping the car nicely in the window for the time being, trying not to make a mistake that will allow Bilal Khan to get ahead up front. Another mercurial final sector, blistering pace coming out there as Khan sets another purple final sector, this time with the assistance of DRS. Miller again very close though as we come into Farm, and now try and swing it back right for the Village complex on the exit to the Wellington Straight. Going to be an overtaking opportunity here surely for Peter Miller. He's close enough, not using the battery, just going to make use of that DRS. It's so potent in this year's game, and Miller with the straight line speed, the overspeed in towards Brooklands will get the move done. These two tripping each other up, but not losing time because of the fact that they are doing it with the DRS. So behind, Ryan Crowhurst is just hoping they can get into it a little bit more in one of these corners and slow each other down. Speaking of which, Khan is going to try and level Miller up in towards Copse. In fact, goes by him into Copse. That's going to give Miller the opportunity to slam the overtake button back on, to stay with him this time through Maggots and Beckett's and look for a rebuttal down the hanger straight, very close into the entrance of Maggots. Very tidy this time for Miller on the exit of Beckett's. Gets the car a little bit slidey, loses some time through Chapel. Battery comes back on this time for Miller briefly on the exit of Chapel, and then again onto the hanger straight. Pulls to the inside in towards Stowe, and that will be a move made that Khan is not going to fight back against. Khan used a fair bit of battery there though to try and defend, down to 76%. Looks to try and dummy a move to the inside into the Vale chicane, but nothing offering here this time. Miller driving with a perfect defense as he rounds the club corner, gets out of there quite nicely, starts to try and stretch a bit of a gap to Khan, as a matter of fact. Must be using a tad of battery down the home straight as he now flies through the farm complex into the heavy braking zone. Getting a bit of a gap built up here is Miller. 0.5 of a second, nearly 0.6 of a second. Of course, that will evaporate quickly when the DRS is activated here behind for Bilal Khan, but they're both sitting on similar battery percentages. That is just a quick first sector from Miller. There's no doubt about it. That wasn't really using ERS. That was more to the sense using his just skill on the track, really. Getting it nailed through that first sector. A little bit wide again there from Miller, though, through Luffield. I think Khan followed his line almost, and that's led to this 7/10 gap opening up. Has Peter Miller been awakened? Has the Spring Sprint champion been found here? Because now he's got ahead. He's pushing that advantage. How's the battery looking? 75%, so he's using a little bit on this lap here just to try and give himself some breathing room from Bilal Khan behind. Massively wide there on the second portion of Beckett's, but gets it tidied up quickly for the exit. But now with DRS active, Khan also deploying a little bit of battery on the exit at Chapel. Looks like he too is going to be closing back in on Peter Miller. So these guys are not going to get away from each other as they would have hoped they would like to. Miller, unfortunately, that 7/10 that he worked so hard to collect is immediately evaporated away from him. 0.6 of a second as they exit the club corner. He's got to do a lot of work in this first sector to find half a second to try and break DRS. I don't think it's likely here for Peter Miller, but last time around he was much, much quicker through this first sector. So we'll see whether it's going to be the case here again as they go into the farm section. Heavy braking, and Miller once again finds a little bit of time through that sector. Just really looking to try and press the advantage now as Khan in behind is going to be back in that DRS, and that 7/10 gap will start to come back on down the Wellington straight. These two, though, really stretching the pace of each other as best they can up front. Wide of Brooklands, gets it in for a late apex there for Khan, but not great. Again, the same story here with Luffield, but Miller taking the same line, but just better on the traction, it would seem. Okay, never mind. Khan got the traction down. Now he's getting the battery on as they come through Woodcut. Miller also, I think, using a little bit there as the gap didn't seem to drop down as much as I thought it would. Now Copse, perfectly tidy for both drivers, but Khan carried much more minimum apex speed through that corner. Further back down the field, though, he's still got Zenik fighting with Joshua Johnston. We'll keep an eye on that gap ahead, but for the time being, plenty of battles going on here in this little five-man train. I think back from EOJ down to Phaser in P9. That's the gaps that we're looking at, and so far this is looking like a mercurial move as Khan takes the lead again from Peter Miller up in the front of the field. The DRS assistants clearly helping out as EOJ gets taken by Powerhouse. Joshua Johnson himself is also Zenik looking to try and make a move around the outside. It's not going to work this time as Jono actually puts the moves on Zenik into the Vale chicane. Going to have to try and stiff it out around the outside. That's a spinning out for Aston Martin, of Jay Rasta. Gets himself caught in conflict there and unfortunately drops off the back of this group with that little incident. Jono held his line fine. I think Rasta was just looking a little bit optimistically up the inside, trying to exploit the weaknesses of the guys ahead. And in the end, that's cost him as Jono continues moving through this field. I don't know whether he's going to have DRS here, but certainly something to keep your eyes peeled on. As up the front, Miller pulls to the inside in Brooklands, gets it done under braking this time. DRS not enough as Khan behind sits firmly in the wheel tracks. EOJ gets back ahead of Joshua Johnson, of course, into the same area. Brooklands and Luffield, obviously one of the key overtaking portions of this track. Joshua Johnston still fighting back, though. Up the inside goes Jono, though, exploiting both of them as they catch and trip each other up. I think EOJ may have even had a bit of contact there that put him around as he's gone back to P9, losing time rapidly, unfortunately. That's not what you want to see, but for Jono here, He's managed to get himself the whole shot in towards P4. He's going to try and set his sights on the car ahead. He's probably likely to have a bit more pace than the guys behind if we know anything about this guy. Definitely tomorrow at Le Mans, I hope he does, as he's going to try and pull away here now. Peter Miller fighting Bilal Khan as they come through Stowe. Outbraking into the Vale chicane, potentially. No, not today. This time, Peter holds his nerve, just trying to keep the pressure on the back of Bilal Khan here, though. It's a strong effort so far here from Peter. Has to be said, he's sticking with your race leader, who I thought, frankly, would clear off in this one. If the rain does come, though, that's going to be where this one really opens up into Bilal Khan's hands. I think Peter needs to find an advantage while it's still dry. Seems that Jono and Joshua Johnston are still swapping places, but I'm still concerned about this battle at the front as Miller takes control again down that Wellington straight. Really trying to put some distance and daylight now between him and Bilal Khan behind. Both of them not really using the battery either. They're quite happy just trading blows like this with the DRS instead of the ERS. They know they're going to need that later on when it comes to trying to break a gap when they feel they've got more of an advantage. This time, the Maggots-Beckett's complex is a little bit tidier for Miller, but it just looks like Khan has just so much more pace through that sector of the track. As now in towards Stowe once again. They swap places, and Miller will just hold station in behind into Stowe this time. Not going to be close enough, it seems, to make a move into the Vale chicane. Very deep on braking, though, there from Miller. Slightly different lines for these guys, too. Miller not using as much of the track on the exit of Club. Going to have to probably use a little bit of battery here to try and get back close into an overtaking window of Bilal Khan. We'll hop on board to see where he's going to be through this farm complex. Very, very close through farm. Braking a little bit earlier than he would otherwise need to avoid running into the back of Khan. Now through Village. Hangs it left, very wide. Just trying to get the power down as early as he can. I think actually gains a bit of time there with that line too. Going to have the DRS and the ERS available, not using one of them, using the DRS instead. Up the inside quite cleanly into Brooklands. We've seen this move so many times between these two now. They're still fighting each other, and I think Khan outbraked himself a little bit there in towards Luffield. That might present the opportunity now for Peter Miller to go ahead. We've seen Khan take that wider line a few times through Luffield, but not really quite like that before. Anyway, gets the time back by using the battery in towards Cops. Is this going to be Khan looking for a move in towards Maggots? I don't think so. That would be a very brave one for sure. We already saw what happened between EOJ and Meikle when you try and go too wide through that sequence of corners, and didn't end well for Meikle that time around. So for one of these two guys, it likely wouldn't either. Anyway, DRS activated here again for Bilal Khan as he looks to try and strides towards the back of Peter Miller. Just not close enough. 0.5 of a second seemingly enough there for Miller. Used a bit of battery, I think, to defend too, but not really so much that it's a particularly a big difference here for the Haas driver. Now Pedro Milano leads across the line. Can he find any more to try and throw at Bilal Khan here? It's been a clean race so far between these two. They've been going very nip and tuck, blow for blow with the assistance of DRS the whole time. Khan trying to set that up with the wider line through Village, but it has lost him that 0.5 of a second gap that we saw be the problem down the Hangar straight. Will it be the same down the Wellington straight? No battery being used here from Khan. Miller a bit wide of Brooklands, but will try and get it tidied up for Luffield. Again, a bit wide there too. Tries and squares the corner off, but gets it all kinds of wrong on the exit. That will invite Bilal Khan straight back 5. Down the old pit straight in towards Cops. And Miller really getting it a bit twisted there on the exit. And that's not going to help his race at all. Unfortunate there for your Spring Sprint champion as he now looks to try and lay down pursuit of Bilal Khan. He's in the wheel tracks through Maggots-Beckett's Chapel. But is there going to be anything of it, Burns? He's left the session, unfortunately. Not sure what's happened there. Maybe a disconnect. Will Miller get by this time down the Hangar straight? You have to believe so. Every time he's been in this position before, he's made it work. And now into Stowe once again on the brakes. Made it happen. Beautiful work from Peter Miller. really has the advantage on the brakes, it would seem, over Bilal Khan, and then Bilal trying to show a nose in towards the final complex at the Vale chicane. But again, it does not deter Miller. He just drives his lines. He's very, very confident in where he's at on this track right now. Feels he has the pace in the dry, it would seem, and these two stuck together like glue as Khan looking to try and launch an attack here down the Wellington Straight. With DRS, you're going to have to assume that he's going to have the pace to do so. Again, just keeping this ERS open to you guys on the broadcast to see who's using, where they're using it. And here we go again. It's going to be Khan using a lot of battery there, 10% worth, to try and get by Miller on the Wellington Straight. Miller will be right back in behind. A little bit of aero wash to keep him wide of Brooklands there, but it's okay. Into Luffield, goes a bit deep, but manages to square the corner back down for a late apex and gets on the power just early enough to gain the slipstream down the old pit straight in towards Copse Corner. Down to just under 0.2 of a second, the gap between the two. You can see how close they are on track, still pushing hard as he now almost looks like he's going to try and go by him into Maggot. Shows him a wheel, but is going to look to try and bail out of this. Compromises Khan's line into the corner. That's going to be really helpful to Miller as they come onto the hangar straight now. 0.2 of a second back, turns on a bit of the battery, and then when the DRS gets activated, you will see him fly on by in towards Stowe. Very, very astute driving there from Miller, showing a wheel but had no intention of going for the move. Compromised Bilal Khan's line the entirety of the way through the corners at Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, and ended up granting him a much easier overtake in towards Stowe. So very wise driving there from Peter. Props to him. As now, into lap number 13, we're starting to see some drivers here going into the pit lane. These will be the drivers who are on the medium tyres. We have Zenik also going in off the hard tyres, interestingly enough. That will be an interesting strategy to see unfold. And we'll see whether the rain is coming or whether it is going to be totally dry for the race here. We'll soon find out. 13 laps in, half race distance. These two at the front, still leading. Ryan Crowhurst in the back of your shot there has closed that gap down from just over 4 seconds down to 3.5 seconds. But if these guys don't trip each other up this lap like they have been doing over the course of this Grand Prix so far, that gap may expand again. As your first pit stoppers have exited the pit lane now, we'll see just how quick they are and what tyres they are on. Hard, medium for Zenik. So he's on the inverted strategies of the guys around him. It should give him a little bit more pace to try and fly by them and work on that undercut of Jono, J Rasta and EOJ up ahead. So that should be an opportunity for him that will come knocking soon. Miller here, though, almost looks to have led for an entire lap. Khan is not going to let that happen as he outbrakes him in towards the Stowe corner. Got him down the Wellington Straight, but Hanger, just a different beast, I'm afraid. A little bit longer in terms of the run that you have onto it, the top speed that you achieve with the pace that you have coming out of Chapel. So through the club corner again, Miller still firmly in the wheel tracks of Bilal Khan up ahead. Throws it right through Abbey. Then going to ping it back left for this complex at Farm. Into the braking zone. Nicely tidied in there from Miller, but can he get it out wide enough to get it through the village complex here at the left and then left again? Of course, the second left is practically flat, but still going to try and run it onto the back of Khan. You have to say that with this closeness that he's got to the back of the McLaren here, he's going to sail on by well before the braking zone at Brooklands, and he does. Once again, Miller takes the race lead. As now, I think J Rasta in the pits, Ryan Crowhurst in the pits, looking for that undercut on these two guys ahead. J Rasta, EOJ also. No, wait, Ryan is in the pits. Yeah, he's already made his stop. He's just made his stop. He's onto the medium tyres. Okay, I was bamboozled a little bit there. So Ryan going to look to try and get these mediums in the window and close down that gap to the two guys ahead. Now through this section, Maggots to the left, to the right. Take it back now, Yarwin to Beckett's. Very tight again this time for Khan, but still losing out a little bit to Miller with the aero wash from the Haas car ahead. Should be by comfortably before Stowe this time, though. Miller offering a bit more of a defense, it was seen with the battery this time. Turn it down to 50%, so Khan is on 68. And Miller still fighting it as they come into the pit lane, actually, for Miller. He's going to go in a lap earlier than Khan is, but he's got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Surely that's going to be the end of that battle if he can't get a huge advantage here from the undercut on Khan. Oh, that's so sad for Miller. I feel so bad for him to get that 5-second penalty. Did send it into the pit lane, though. And now Khan trying to shoot away in the race lead. That 5-second penalty is so rough for Miller there. As the Haas car exits the garage, we'll see confirmation of that 5-second penalty as he rounds out the Silverstone pit lane. Extremely long, extremely slow pit lane here as well at Silverstone. So your pit stops are mightily important. Anyway, medium tyres on the Haas car. 5-second penalty for Afro as well for speeding in the pit lane. As Miller exits those pits and tries now to set off in building a huge gap ahead to Khan, who is still yet to box. Oh, big slide there from Miller. Cold tyre slide, it would seem. Going to be using the battery to really try and hammer this advantage home, though. You have to imagine that Khan's going to be coming in this lap. If he doesn't, he's going to be finding himself even more susceptible to a very dangerous undercut. Of course, he will have the better tyres at the end of the race, but that undercut is not to be messed with on F123. Especially if, for whatever reason, Miller can get that 5-second time penalty removed. Seems that Bilal Khan is staying out for another lap. So that undercut looking like it's going to have double the advantage here for Peter Miller if he can really start to put the hammer down on these medium tyres. Ryan Crowhurst, you could see, gained over a second on that undercut to Peter Miller with his pit stop a lap earlier. Using a fair whack of battery now to try and get into the DRS of Peter Miller up ahead. That would be really lovely for him, but he's got to gain over a second to do so. Looks like he has a bit more pace on these mediums, though, compared to the guys around him. So that's a positive sign for Crow. As Miller really hounding on. I think he's made up over a second so far. 29.1. Fastest lap of the race there for Ryan Crowhurst. But what does Peter Miller have on this lap? Obviously, we mentioned that Khan has stayed out, and that gap is still coming down here. 20.5 of a second. I believe when we crossed the line, the gap to Jono was 21 seconds, maybe 22. So that gap is still tumbling by the second here. Zenik, I think, is in a side-by-side with Fazer. These two toughing it out as they come onto the Wellington straight. Fazer around the outside, leaving very little room through Village, but they both make it through. DRS activated for the pair of them as they now try and climb up onto the back of Joshua Johnston. Zenik with the inside line to Brooklands. Not going to be a completed move yet, though, because Fazer, holding it on the inside at Luffield as he tries and pushes. They're still side by side as they come through Woodcut. It looks now that maybe Zenik has conceded the position, but will he do the same thing into Cops? Yes. Rather astutely leaves that one by. And again, Khan going for another lap here on these hard tyres. Is he trying to stretch for softs? Does he think that's his strategy of choice? A little bit more pace towards the end of the race? Or is he hoping that there's a safety car still in the cards for the guys on track here? Either way, Miller making up heaps of time on these medium tyres. They are just singing for him right now. He's even gaining time on Ryan Crowhurst behind him, who's not got the same amount of pace. That's a new fastest lap for Peter Miller. No ERS dues for him either on that one. 28.7. Serious pace coming out of the Haas driver. The Spring Sprint champion, showing what his pedigree is here in TOTL. Seriously good stuff coming out from the big man. I don't mean big as in large, by the way. Huge props to Miller on his weight loss. I saw a tweet about that the other day. Hugely impressive, but I mean big on his height. Big shoes to fill as well from his Spring Sprint days. He's obviously not been the same man through the Season 6 portion of the TOTL history. He's starting to look like a man possessed here. A man trying to play for some cash. Almost Jono, by the way, I think is lapping a bit quicker than Khan now. That gap has stayed at 6 seconds and come down even a little bit in the previous laps. We'll see. Is Khan going to hop into the pits this time as he exits through Stowe? Yes, this time Khan is into the pit lane, locking the brakes as he tries to get in there. Johnny staying out for another lap here, really trying to push for these soft tyres, or if there is any inclement weather on its way. We'll soon find out. Where is this going to put Peter Miller, though, in relation to Bilal Khan, of course? That pit stop 3 laps before what Bilal Khan decided to do with his tyres. Bilal Khan is going to go onto the soft tyre, by the way. So with 8 laps to go, Is that soft tyre going to last as long as these mediums, as Miller sets another fastest lap of the race, a 28.7. Khan has been overtaken by Miller in the pits, and it's going to be quite some way as well. Khan only now just getting up to racing speed. It's going to be 3.5 seconds. In fact, Ryan Crowhurst has got ahead of Bilal Khan by 2.8 seconds as well. That undercut has worked beautifully for Ryan. He's made up so much time on the race leader, but don't forget, these soft tyres around Silverstone are going to be lightning. They are going to be so very quick. Johnny Nicholson, currently your race leader, but for how much longer? As he has got to make a pit stop still. Surely onto those soft tyres. He's going to be dropped back into the clutches of I don't even know where. That gap is behind is so dangerous at the moment. There's so many drivers still scrapping for position back there. But for Johnny, it could be a really good race here. 10th to wherever he's going to wind up. It's looking good already. But 18 laps into this one, still got all 12 drivers circulating, and they are so very far apart at a lot of these areas of the track right now. There's a little bit of a train going on here, though, with these three. Inseparable all race long so far, as Fazer currently holds them all up into Maggots and Beckett's. But Fazer with no battery to play with, as you can see the red light flashing on the back of the Aston Martin, should provide an opportunity now for Joshua Johnston to try and fly on past into Stowe. We may even see a double overtake here with Zenik looking to try and put the moves on the Aston Martin around the outside into Stowe as well, but thinks better of it this time around. Doesn't quite have the space or the speed to make that one work. Jono now finally into the pits. Going to be coming out on soft tyres for Jono as well. Where he will end up is anybody's guess, but for the time being, Miller is pulling away from Ryan Crowhurst behind and trying to build that 5-second gap. Bilal Khan closing rapidly, though. It was 2.8 seconds last lap. It's 1.6 now. He sees Ryan just ahead of him. He's not going to have DRS down the Wellington straight, which will halt his progress somewhat. The best favour that Ryan Crowhurst can do right now for Peter Miller ahead is hold up Bilal Khan as much as he possibly can. If he's fighting for his own race, it'll be to try and tag on to the back of Bilal Khan with the DRS assistance. But how hard is Khan willing to push these soft tyres? He's in DRS now. Much faster he's going to be through Copse. Much faster he's going to be through Maggots, Beckett and Chappell. You can see Ryan pulling to the right-hand side there, just trying to create as much turbulence for Khan behind, but I think he knows what's coming. It's going to be an overtake down the hanger straight. DRS activated here any second, and it's going to be a purple sector 2-2. This is an absolutely storming lap time. There is a ghosted Burnsy, I think that is, at the front of shot there. And is Khan going to have enough to try and break away from Ryan Crowhurst before the Wellington straight at the first sector of the next lap? I imagine he likely will. That 5-second penalty for Miller now going to keep looming over his head, as it's already 0.8 of a second, a 27.4 for Bilal Khan. He's just lighting the timing screens alight here with this blistering pace on these soft tyres. Johnny Nicholson slots out in 4th, by the way, when he made his pit stop. Soft tyres for him now as well, so he'll be closing this gap. But 10 seconds in 6 laps seems like a bit of a tough ask, as Ryan Crowhurst is going to be out of DRS, doesn't get any assistance really here. And it's going to be the Bilal Khan chases down Peter Miller in case that 5-second time penalty is removed at the end of this one. Further back, Joshua Johnston still scrapping with Zenik and Fazer. These two pulling out alongside each other. The COD guys having a scrap as Fazer will take back over. This is just allowing more time for Zenik to get away. Joshua Johnston disconnected from the session, it would seem. So that's not going to help his race. That's going to basically leave him to drop back there on the AI. That's not going to be anyway quick. As Fazer hunts down now Zenik. It becomes a 2-horse race. Johnny, by the way, closing in hand over fist. We're up 2 seconds on what Ryan Crowhurst is doing. Yellow flag in sector 1 being waved. Hopefully no safety car here, as we're now just 6 laps from the end of this Grand Prix. No rain, it would seem. Jay Rasser, of course, takes through the ghosted car of Powerhouse. Further back, these two still scrapping. Red lights flashing. No battery for either of these two guys. Khan still closing hand over fist as well on Miller up ahead. So that's not going to be a fun task for Miller to try and defend against. He's got to hope that those soft tyres that are nearing 3 laps old now really start to fall off in the next few laps. Otherwise, he's not going to have time to respond to what Khan is throwing at him behind. Khan with so much pace on those softs in the opening few laps of them. But will they fall off is the question. 30% battery for Bilal Khan, nearly 60% battery for Peter Miller behind. And that gap isn't closing as quick as it was. That could be because Peter Miller's got the pace here on these mediums, or it could be because those softs are starting to trickle away from their optimum window. Silverstone, a track which tyre wear is so important. You need so much mechanical grip, so much lateral grip as well through these faster speed corners. And with the ERS running low for Khan too, if these tyres start to go any further astray, it may give an opportunity for Peter Miller to take a surprise win here in Silverstone. It's looking like a good time already this time around the circuit. Not really lost too much, just 0.2 of a second to Khan behind. Joshua Johnston back in the session, but by this point he's already so far back, it's not really going to play too much of a difference as EOJ picks up a second time penalty for track limits violations. Jay Rasta also picks one up now as well. The gap that I'm really interested in seeing come down, though, is that of Jono. 6 seconds he is now behind Ryan Crowhurst. And that is 4 seconds in 2 laps. It is absolutely blistering pace here from the Season 2 champion as he hunts down the Season 3 champion. Both of these guys with pedigree in racing in both Le Mans tomorrow, where they'll be teammates with myself and Loadsy. And of course, there's enemies on the track. 0.5 of a second just through the first sector here for Johnny. He has got so much pace on these softs. Huge amounts of an advantage, and he's making them last as well because he kept them in the window a little bit longer. Ryan doesn't quite have the same pace, I think, here as he's dropping back further and further into the clutches of him. 4 laps to go. And Khan closing as we round Cops here. Don't know whether he'll be close enough to spring a move on Miller. These tyres are going to be such a stretch towards the end. Miller with the mediums, he's going to be able to make these work to the end and keep the pace up, I'm sure of it. It's all on whether Khan can do the same thing with the soft tyres. They do degrade very quickly compared to the medium tyres. It's not really even a step up. It's quite a leap up, really, from the medium to the softs, really, on these the tyre life of these compounds. Down to 4.4 seconds, though, behind here for Jono. He is closing, and he is closing quickly. Miller used a bit of battery here to try and defend from Khan, it would seem. Both these guys using the remainder of their battery reserves just to try and hold this gap a little bit more. Khan, I don't think closing quick enough, but if he does get into DRS, that gap will come down very, very quickly. I think Jono might get Ryan here, by the way. He is closing so very fast. Absolutely blistering pace since the pit stop. He is driving so comfortably, so cleanly. Let's hop on board and see just exactly what he's doing that is making this time fall away off the back of the Alfa Romeo up ahead. The Red Bull just looks to have it totaled in. These soft tyres doing bits for him as he rounds Luffield. Down to 3 seconds the margin now. It was 4 as we crossed the line, so he's gained a second in half a lap. And now through the sector where the mechanical grip and the lateral grip really matters, Maggots, Beckett's, Copse, Chapel, all these corners should gain time hand over fist on Ryan Crowhurst up ahead. Now through the right of Maggots, keeps it pinned, drops a gear into Beckett's, another gear on the exit as he hits up to Chapel, foot flat to the floor. Now 2.9 seconds. The gap is not coming down as quickly as it was. It's still a second a lap here, but it's not 2 seconds a lap as it has been. Still pushing on here though for Johnny as he still hounds that Alfa Romeo up ahead. These tyres might be reaching that point now where they're not quite going to be as quick. Khan, though, has made up so much time on this lap. 1.8 seconds now the gap. It was 2.2. 0.4 of a second has been made up here on lap 23. Now into lap 24, he's going to be hunting for that DRS. As much as he sees that 5-second penalty, he will want the race win on track just to be sure that Miller doesn't snatch it away from him with getting that penalty removed after the race, if there is any question about it. Jono now within 2.5 of Ryan Crowhurst. That first sector, he just seems to have so much more speed, but needs to make sure he gets that 1.5 seconds done before the final lap, because he's going to have 2 opportunities with DRS that's really going to help him out. Speaking of DRS opportunities, Khan still 7/10 of a second back of Miller. 17% of his battery remaining. Miller with 40% of his battery remaining. That's going to be so helpful to Miller in these closing laps to try and pull away from the challenger behind on the McLaren. A little bit wide there as he comes through Chapel. Kept the minimum apex speed up though for Khan. Just that straight line speed of the Haas car ahead just seems to have a little bit less wing on it because he pulls away ever so slightly down those straights every single time. The moves look easier when they were fighting earlier on down the straight too. Now into Vale, you can obviously see his target up ahead and the gap is still coming down, just not as quickly as it was before. These soft tyres might not have been the move. If there was no 5-second penalty, it would definitely be tight. Penultimate lap here at the British Grand Prix. Home race for a lot of the drivers here on the grid. Will it be a victory for Bilal Khan, or is it going to be a victory for Peter Miller with 44% of the battery, 8% remaining for Bilal Khan? It's going to have to be a push here from Miller. He's going to have to use this battery to defend. Surely if he uses it now, he's going to put this race to bed. And there it is, battery well and truly on there. Uses a fair dab of it to get himself that 1.6 second margin back ahead of Bilal Khan. He will get this race win on track if he continues with this fine driving. Meanwhile, behind, Jono, so very close to Ryan Crowhurst. The gap is 1.4 seconds. The ERS is about 10% difference between the two. That could be what it comes down to here, but Johnny is still driving so damn well, hunting for this third place, trying desperately to scavenge this lead back, as he's now 1.4, will come down very, very quickly through this sector if he can get it nailed as he has done so far. 1.4, going to be trying to hound it down to that 1.0 margin where he gets the DRS. So very close. 1.3 back up to 1.4. Is the tyres really starting to fall away from it? It's the first sector where Johnny's found all his success so far. Anyway, back up the front, Miller used a lot more battery this time around to try and defend, down to 27% as we come into the final lap here. Rounds club for the penultimate time. Miller starting the final lap of the British Grand Prix here for TOTL, round 6 of the summer sprint. Now into Abbey, keeps that gap very nicely tidied up. Abbey this time for Johnny, or sorry, into Club this time for Johnny, using, I think, a little bit of battery to get it down to 1.2 now. So very close as he comes through the farm complex. So much more speed than Ryan Crowhurst here. Into the braking zone. He's not going to be within that 1 second window as we come into the DRS detection zone, but it's going to be very close. Maybe he can get it down the hanger straight if he keeps hounding this gap on down. It's going to be close here for Johnny Nicholson, but not quite close enough. No DRS available to him at this moment in time. He and Ryan Crowhurst have about similar battery, so this one could come down to the wire for the final podium position. Up front though, looks like Miller may well have just done enough here with the battery. If he uses it all through this sector, he will have this race win in the bag, at least on track, without that penalty being applied. Johnny now within 0.6 of a second, 0.5 of a second, hauling ass up to the back, but there's a 3-second time penalty wide on the exit of Copse, and that might cost him the podium position that he's been hunting for this entire time. The one mistake as the adrenaline starts to come over him as he's made up what is a 10-second gap in 8 laps or so. It's been a hugely impressive effort here from Johnny Nicholson. Is it going to be enough as he runs to the back of Ryan Crowhurst into Stowe? Still not close enough to put the move on him this time around, and I don't think it'll be close enough to get the move on him into Vale either, but across the line it will be Peter Miller. Unserved time penalty will relegate him to P2 for the moment. Bilal Khan will take the race lead. We'll see whether it's going to be a penalty applied after the race. Ryan Crowhurst solidifies a third place he's hung on to all race. But an incredible drive from Jono Nicholson. It's absolutely a tippable drive. Tip your hat, doff your cap to that guy. Unbelievable performance. Zenik will cross the line to finish 5th. Fazer will come round to finish 6th, it would seem, with Jay Rasta rounding out an Aston Martin 6th, 7th. EOJ in 8th. Joshua Johnston will round the final complex here down onto the hanger straight. Huge gap between him from disconnecting, of course. Meikle, also, shout out goes to him. He had a really rough do here. Obviously got tagged around by EOJ in the opening laps and carried that through the race. Did everything he could to recover, but unfortunately not quite enough there for Meeks. He will come home to steal 1 point away as Joshua Johnston will round out to take 9th. And Meikle here, just 3 seconds back to take 10th off track. What's he doing? Either way, he's finished the race. Afro will be your last finisher here in P11. comes through club corner, and there it is. There's your race concluded here in TOTL. To be decided in the stewards, maybe. We'll have to see whether that 5-second time penalty will get removed or not. But for the time being, it's Bilal Khan, your race winner. It's 10th to 4th for Johnny Nicholson as the reserve. A stellar performance from Jono. And it's got to go understated that that was a much better British Grand Prix than what the qualifying had indicated. Hugely impressive in the end. Great to see that Peter Miller is back on form as well around one of the circuits that he loves. Great performance from everyone involved. Really good racing, especially from the guys at the front. Huge effort, wham performance, and I'm very proud to say that was a good race despite the lower numbers. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure to bring you this Grand Prix. We'll see you next time here in TOTL for round 7. Same time next week, same place. You know the drill. Join us for the endurance race tomorrow as well, starting at 8 AM. Stream will be live here on the TOTL Twitch and YouTube channels, so tune in whenever you please for the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the LMP2. We'll see you then. Thank you very much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. We'll see you next time.
He's neck and neck with Lewis Hamilton. Bentley's alongside and ahead. Hamilton's going to try again. This time on the inside and comes an inside. Oh my goodness, this is fantastic.
Cocaine in my nose, there got rose